After putting this phone against my brand new Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, I thought to myself, wow, this phone is actually really solid considering this is kind of Apple's last year's take at the quote unquote budget iPhone of the three. And considering the price that this phone cost, what is it, 750 for the 128 gig or something like that? 64 gig is 700. Um, when you consider that, there's still a lot about this phone that some people might not like, but or just Apple in general. But personally, I feel like the iPhone 11, this particular model, not taking into consideration my iPhone 11 Pro Max, any of those devices, leaving all of those out of the way, this phone is actually really hot, man. I mean, it's a daily driver for me at times, and it's a phone that either you're gonna love Apple's OS or you're not gonna love Apple's OS. I used to keep all my icons in folders, and I just decided to reset the home page one day, and I just kind of just left it here, just so I don't have to go into folders because I don't like closing out of folders on Apple devices. Something as simple as that, it kind of annoys me. But I realized I like the iPhone 11 just as much as I like the iPhone 8 Plus, if not more, because of that ultra wide lens and just the camera quality that comes from this device. Shooting video on this thing is just incredible, and taking the time to use this phone for what it really should be used for, which is the day-to-day, any of the iPhones, I should say, not just this phone in particular. I find myself always in review mode, and really, this is going to sound some type of way, but you'll get over it. But when I'm using an iPhone, I don't really feel like that sometimes. I just feel like, okay, this is the phone I need to pick up when I need to go. I like using CarPlay so much, what I'm saying, compared to Android Auto. There's things about iPhones and stuff that I don't talk about much in videos, but CarPlay is one of my favorites. And it sounds strange, but keeping this phone plugged up on a 10-hour trip, which I've done before, I had no problems whatsoever. I've never had any problems with Android devices, but something about CarPlay versus Android Auto, I just like CarPlay better. And I think now the latest update to Android Auto is pretty much trying to mimic what Apple had in place with CarPlay. But when I use this device, and it's just something about it. It sounds like I'm going to talk about like what Apple says, but it's just simple. It's just I don't expect. See, the thing about this phone, I don't have very high standards for it, as far as the phone itself. But the cameras is why I really nitpick this device, because that's what I like to use them for. I like to use them for the channel and just to record videos and things like that. I just think they're really good. And other than that, though, I don't have very high standards for this phone, and it outperforms other phones that it shouldn't. I think and that's kind of sad considering Apple hasn't even released their latest iPhone yet. And the iPhone 11 is already better than a ton of Android offerings, in my personal opinion. And I'm not saying as a whole, because I definitely prefer Android over iOS, but the simplicity of things and just getting things done, I feel like Apple has kind of mastered that, and that's why the consumers go to iPhones. There are millions and millions of iPhones out there, and people flock to them day in and day out. It's like one of the most popular phones in the world, and it's almost boring to a sense. I sometimes I can't use an iPhone for very long, but obviously I've had this one since launch, and it's kind of, I've had an iPhone 11 and 11 Pro since launch. I'll say that because I've switched colors a couple times, but still same phone and higher storage capacities and things like that. But other than that, same devices. So knowing that I like this phone as much as I do, I really enjoy photos. I really enjoy video. I really enjoy CarPlay. The signal on it in this house is not as good. Like Wi-Fi signal is strong, but not as strong as the other Android devices for some reason. And that's just what it is. It's just not as strong. Now you'll see these speeds and say, oh, these are pretty decent. But remember, I have 1 gigabit internet down, And some of the Android phones that I use in this same spot are about 150 more than this or so, all over Wi-Fi. So, the fact that this phone is good, it's strong. I use it for a lot of things. I do a lot of phone calls with this. The connectivity of my AirPods is super simple. I like shot case. I like being able to just open it up, boom. And I can do this with other devices, other Android phones and other Bluetooths. But the uniformity for Apple is pretty sweet, and there's just no getting around it. I totally enjoy the uniformity that I have with my Apple ecosystem. But having the iPhone 11 for some time now, I think it's more than enough phone. And I've said this in 1,000 other reviews of iPhones, and I've given you a 6-month review on this. This phone is obviously aging extremely well. iPhones age very well, and I can just only imagine. I'm ready for Apple to do something special. To me, they haven't done it yet. Samsung always brings the eclectic devices, give you your bang for your buck with LG and Motorola. All the other OEMs have done something and took some kind of risk that paid off. I mean, the Fold started off bad, but people love that phone, I guess. The Z Flip, beast mode. I love the Z Flip. But the new S20 line, I didn't think it was going to be anything magical. It's just a solid line of phones. But with the iPhone, I remember, I think technically T said it one time. He said, I can just take out my iPhone and take that photo, and I don't have to wait. And he's not wrong. It's really sweet that, with my S20 Plus, it's over here somewhere. Here it is. My S20 Plus, it's not that I have to wait for a shot. It's just that it just doesn't feel. It's not polished. It's new to the game. It's new to the market, so it's gonna have that. Oh my gosh, it's not ready yet type feel. This phone is completely polished and ready to hit the masses. It's already out in the masses. You can hand this to anybody out there that's an iPhone user, and they'll be in love with it. They'll love it just like any other iPhone they ever had, because it's pretty much the same phone with different internals and a different look a little bit. But, when I put it up against this device right here, I was actually surprised at how well this phone held its own against Samsung's latest offering. It doesn't matter that it's the Ultra or not, or the 11 or the Max or Pro. It doesn't matter anything about that. It's more shocking that Apple still has a device. And most iPhones last a long time. They last a long time. But I'm curious as to how Samsung is going to combat Apple's next iPhone. Because this isn't it. This is better than the iPhone in a lot of ways. But to me, the crown jewel that they have still is the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. My Note 10 Plus is over here somewhere. I'm Team Rinky, so I'm taking them out of cases. But this phone is still the crown jewel. To me, this is Samsung's best offering. And if you don't have a Note 10, I already made a video comparing these two, the Note 10 Plus and the S20 Plus. If you don't have one of these phones, this is Samsung's crown jewel, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. That's their crown jewel. But if Samsung's having trouble with their latest line, in my personal opinion, competing against Apple's lowest version of their device, what does that say? I had someone say, "Oh, Joe, you're not doing Samsung any justice. You're killing them here." Well, I'm not doing anything. I'm buying the phones, testing them out like I always do. And if Samsung isn't bringing the thunder, like the Z line, I would think that they would be pushing the Z line more. The Galaxy Z Flip, I would think they would just push it, give better promos or just as good promos as the S20 line. But they're not. The trade-in values are different. That I don't understand. Like, I was really perturbed about that, because I couldn't get $600 for the same. They give me $700 if I buy the S20. They obviously want to push the S20 line on Samsung, but I can't get $700 for my Note 10 Plus if I wanted to trade in at the beginning. So I ended up not doing trade-in and paying full cost for my Z Flip. And I ain't mad at them, because the Z Flip to me is one of the most eclectic of all of these, and I think it was actually it's the better phone of the 4 phones that were just released. Even though it has its own shortcomings, they all have their own shortcomings. And I feel like even with that being said, Apple's lowest tier of their latest three devices still kind of outshines Samsung in so many ways. As far as camera game, I'm surprised. I need Samsung to come with it, but I'm also looking for Apple to really bring the thunder with this next iPhone. Do something new, do something great, do something different, do something. Don't just put out the same thing. In the meantime, it's time to wake up the beast, because I haven't been using my S10 Plus. I'm about to work on a 2-week review for the S20 Plus, but it's time to wake up the beast, man. This is my beast right here. Unlocked, 512 gig, Galaxy Note 10 Plus, king of the crop, man. Anyway, it's your man Jay. Apple has always brought it for simplicity, some would say. I say just it's user friendly, and that's why a lot of people probably buy iPhones to this day. But what do you think about Apple, and what should they be doing next for their next iPhone? These mediocre small upgrades. What do you think about that? Isn't it time for Apple to do something spectacular like Samsung does? Like, when you think about it, the Note line, beast mode, untouched by a lot of companies. No competition for the Note line. And then you've got this new S line, but you got that new Z line, the Z Flip. I'll be giving you guys a follow-up probably on that soon. You got that Z Flip, which is just beast mode. What does Apple need to do? You got the Surface Duo coming out too. Samsung's got the Fold. They got the Z Flip. They do have the S20 line, which isn't a shabby line at all. I was just surprised at how well this little guy held up against the S20 Plus. It's your man Jay. Hope you guys enjoy. Apple fans, rejoice. What does Apple need to do to catch up to Samsung as far as innovation goes, and something exclusive to Apple? What do they need to do? Take care.